Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the session of Administrator Issues and Updates on February 11th, 2025. County Chief Operating Officer Nancy Bush, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Commissioner Schrader,
Here?
Commissioner Fireside,
Here.
Commissioner Savas,
Present.
and Chair Roberts.
Here. Thank you, Nancy. Would you please introduce the first agenda item for us?
Yes, the first agenda item is Tonya Haloweski in Public Government Affairs, and today she is here, to talk about, what is your first item? My
State of the
apologies.
county. No worries.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here this morning to ask whether Clackamas County should consider hosting and producing its own State of the County event. If so, what is the board's direction for the event format? And just some background, as you know, the county has presented a State of the County event every year. Most recently, this was in partnership with the North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce, usually in the spring. In previous years, the county did host these events independently. So if the BCC decides to move forward with an independent event, PGA does have some options to consider for the event format. And an event could be organized here in the hearing room, similar to what we see at the weekly meetings. It could also be live streamed on Facebook for enhanced virtual public participation. We can have an off-site event, where we would secure a site and partner with local chambers of commerce or the Clackamas Community College, civic organizations, or others. The meeting may accommodate virtual participation, but that would depend on their technical capabilities. And finally, we'd like you to consider perhaps an online town hall where this event is held entirely online. We've done these in the past. It can also be live streamed on Facebook for enhanced virtual public participation. And all of these, the event in any case would be open to the public, and we will promote the public participation widely. So while we don't have a recommendation, it's more of an ask that if you do decide to hold an independent event, that you consider holding it in the fall of this year.
Great.
And then there are some pros and cons that we provide, but I'm not going to go into those at this point.
Fantastic. Colleagues, input, questions, thoughts?
Yeah, Chair. Yeah.
Commissioner Savas.
So I guess the when is also a factor, I think. And so I personally, I've been here long enough to where we've done them all those different kind of models for the most part. And I really enjoy the setting in which the chamber one has. Not necessarily whether it's the chamber or it's another organization, but I kind of like that setting. But I also found out that sometimes, or discovered that sometimes our introductory comments go so long that the Q&A, which I think is the most valuable for that kind of setting, is cut short. So I would just ask that we have the discipline to keep that tighter, our comments, and then focus on answering the questions as well as, but it's appropriate to kind of give somewhat of a report, but from a timing standpoint, I think we're maybe with the change of the board that maybe we might be more ready for that later in the second half of the year than we would the first half of the year, but those are my thoughts. Chair, yield back.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I actually like number 2 and 3. I have found, I like working with a civic organization. I think that's a good way to go, whether it's the community college or chambers, plural, too.
Exactly.
We can have an invite with all of the chambers if necessary. The other thing, I always liked the online town hall because they were generally in the evening, and people who maybe couldn't make it during the day could be there.
attend,
Okay,
right.
so I actually have liked both of those formats. The hearing room, I think we need an off-site. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Martha.
Okay.
Commissioner West.
I'm hearing a lot more and more from constituents who keep saying we'd love to be more involved, but we work. It's just hard, and they probably would come and sit in the hearing room and have conversations with us, and we don't hear from those voices very often, and they're different voices because, well, they have kids or they work. So I do like the idea of making it more accessible to more people in a happy hour or evening setting, and I also tend to be thinking that getting off-site and something a little more neutral is nice. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Well, I pretty much agree with my colleagues, just kind of hearing what they're saying. I think that, number one, I think offsite is great. I think doing it at a different place rather than the chamber, like you suggested, the college, I think it's just great to try and move it around so different entities kind of have a chance to attend that they might not normally attend. I think that, so I would encourage you to kind of look at offsite options. I really agree that in person is the way to go. But I also wanted to ask, this online town hall, and maybe you can kind of enlighten me as just what have you seen as the numbers of people that attend that in the past? I always want to make sure that.
Yeah, so we've actually been really successful with the town halls. We started those online town halls during COVID, of course, and it depended on the topic, I'll be honest, but we've had more than 100 participants in any given town hall. We broadcast them very broadly. We give advance notice. And so they've been very successful. And to everyone's point, the accessibility issue it really tackles that issue because people can attend, they don't have to travel, they can accommodate because they're in their home usually. So they've been very successful.
Yeah. So it sounds like perhaps trying to do them both. Looks like
Yeah,
a
well,
good.
if depending on the site we locate, it sounds to me like most we haven't heard. I don't know if Commissioner Fireside, if you wanted to chime in as well, but it sounds like we are looking more for an off-site, and then what we could do is see if they have the virtual capabilities, because in today's technology you can do both. So. But it would depend on their capabilities. So we can definitely put a priority on that, but we'll see what's out there if we do move to that option.
Commissioner Fireside, did you have a comment on
No,
this?
I think we're on the same
All
page.
right. Well, I think we've kind of got a clear direction, unless you have any other questions.
I just want to be clear, it sounds like we do want to do our own independent event, partner with some of the partners that I've mentioned. I think that would be a great opportunity, and then scheduling for the fall, and then we've got our homework for us to find
Sounds
out.
great. And it will be after our retreat and
It will be
those things.
well,
so that
it'll
kinda
be
helps us.
almost a year under the belt, so I think that it'll be much more meaningful.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Right, Nancy,
All
what's
right,
up next?
we have proposed projects of congressionally directed spending, and Tonya Halowiski is also covering this topic.
Yes.
And Trent Wilson.
Thank you. Yes, I've asked Trent Wilson, a PGA Government Affairs Manager, to join. And we're going to be asking for your approval of the recommended project list for potential submission for the fiscal year of 2026 congressionally directed spending, also known as earmarks. Just for background, the congressional offices are beginning to solicit proposals, including capital and programmatic funding requests. Applications to the Senate office are due February 23rd, and the House has not yet defined its process. So PGA was tasked with developing and recommending a list of projects suitable for earmark funding. And the projects were identified in consultation with departments, and PGA is currently actively working with our congressional offices to evaluate which projects may be competitive for funding, if any. And given the condensed timeline we have for the federal proposals, that we're seeking your approval of the recommended project list, which is what you have with you. And this approval will authorize us to submit a proposal for federal consideration should a recommended project appear competitive. We will keep you informed of any applications or if recommended projects are determined to be unsuitable for this funding cycle. So we recommend that you approve the attached list of projects recommended for congressionally directed spending considerations. We're happy to answer questions and provide additional information. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Commissioner West?
The list is a little smaller this year. Trent, last year we had the Recovery Campus, and we got 2.5 million directed that way from the Senate. Is that still in process, even though we have a new Congress, or what about the previous ones that we still haven't got the check yet?
Yeah.
But are they off the list now because they're still in process?
So correct, last year we applied for 2 projects, just like we're proposing this year. 2 is a nice, safe, comfortable number to deliver. These are all time intensive for your staff to implement. But yes, last year we submitted for the Recovery Center. And I think we requested 5, and the senators were willing to submit for 2.5. And then we also requested funding through Congresswoman Chavez DeRemer at the time for solarization of our library projects. And that was about $700,000 to solarize both the Gladstone and Oak Grove libraries. They're both, they're both still pending an appropriation or Congress passing a budget. So normally Congress passes their budget, in theory, around the September, October timeframe, which is their end of their fiscal year. There was a continuing resolution that got us to about the Christmas season, and then they've done another continuing resolution through the middle of March. So we're waiting to see if Congress will approve a budget at that time, or we are also hearing rumors the potential to do a full year continuing resolution, which would delay the appropriation requests that are from last year fully. And so I want to just kind of flag that is a possibility. We have brought this up in our meeting so far with the congressional offices. They have said no need to resubmit what you submitted last year. If Congress does do a full year continuing resolution, they will circle back with us and ask us, do we want to stick with those projects or stick with the newer projects, but get both applications in there.
And then the 911 call center,
2 years ago.
that's
2023.
spending from when when Congresswoman Chavez DeRemer first, okay, so that was 2 years before that.
Yeah.
That was, okay, realized. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying how that all works again. I don't have any issues necessarily with these. Are they just the next ones in line, or were you really thoughtful about the priorities of the board and policy direction where we needed the additional funding? Can you explain that a little bit?
Thank you. Really good question. The answer to that is yes. There are a handful of projects that all departments are, I think, juggling at any given time. When PGA goes through our annual meeting with our departments, we ask them, do you have any capital projects that are like ripe for congressional funding? And we really specifically ask, like, what's in process? Where are you at? And then trying to figure out, like, is this the last dollar in? If the dollars come like 18 to 24 months from now, because Congress's timeline is strained these days, then will that work for your project? So it's kind of figuring out what projects exist, what projects are in the sweet spot of timing, and what projects also align with our delegation offices, which is why we meet with them to say, what is your boss excited about right now? What are they wanting to submit for? So we take a lot of that information and try to bring it together.
So my one thought that I don't see on here that I don't know if it was considered, and maybe it's not appropriate for this type of funding, maybe it is, but I'll throw it out there. We have a failing bridge, I don't know if you've heard about it, in East Clackamas County. And we have really kind of braided and hobbled together quite a bit of funds to really replace it. We're not quite there, but if that bridge goes, that entire community is isolated from everyone else in a way that's pretty catastrophic, and it's already, almost unusable. So I didn't know if we had thought about that, or if that is an appropriate ask, just because it's so severely, chronically a problem right now. So yeah, I don't know if you could speak to that.
Yes, happy to speak to that if we're talking about the Bull Run Bridge.
Yes, yeah, Bull Run, yeah.
Perfect. Woo.
Yeah.
So yes, the county has submitted an application for what's called the Bridge Improvement Program. It's under the larger Surface Transportation Act that has, applications out every year. We have applied for that project many, many times. I think I'm not looking at my materials, but I think it's like a $17 or $18 million request into Congress, which is a lot higher than what the congressional directed spending programs usually allocate for. So a couple of things in that factor. We've actually talked about this quite a bit. It would probably be, that amount of money is typically on almost a full allocation for what a member of Congress might receive in a congressionally directed spending. So thinking about a member of Congress who has a full district and they can submit usually up to 15 projects, we would be asking a member of Congress to say, can this be like your only request for your whole district? If we were to go through a CDS process, it's not a perfect fit for the type of funding we're normally talking about. But we do have an active application out. Both members of Congress and the Senate have put in support letters for that particular project. So we are advocating for it. It's a big part of our federal agenda. We really need it.
And in my last question, and then I'll yield back the floor. Right now, we seen the administration make pretty strong requirements for states to be considered for funding and for those funds to maybe get to states that maybe weren't supportive of the current presidential administration or the executive branch, such as being a sanctuary state, and they have other things on that. And when we see some of our members of Congress in front of the USAID building protesting and saber rattling, I'm really concerned about the ability to continue to get federal funds here at the local level. I think a lot of us are quite anxious about how that behavior will overall impact the ability to get these critical funds and a partnership with the federal government along with state and all the other entities. How do we see the current kind of political climate playing out here to be able to get these resources that have been vital to a community like ours?
Fun question. Thank you, Commissioner West. I can't predict what the current administration is going to do or how they'll anticipate their engagement with funding, especially funding that is directed by Congress, that is dedicated to many members of Congress. I suspect that, I don't want to suspect anything. I don't know what the administration is going to push forward. What I would say, though, is here's a process where we know Congress is moving forward with applications, and if we don't submit anything, we won't get anything. And I would rather, my recommendation would be that they put the county in a spot to try to get something. And if the administration or Congress makes a change, we'll at least have done our part, what's in our control, to put ourselves in a position to potentially get money. I think that's how I would approach the situation as it is.
So it's much more specifically directed, so maybe the executive branch doesn't have the same ability to stop funds from getting to communities like ours. Is that correct?
That's the hope, but
Okay.
we will see.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering my question.
Any other comments, questions? All right, so do anybody want to submit a motion?
Chair, I move that we approve the attached list of projects recommended for congressionally directed spending that was presented before us today.
I'll second that.
All right, Commissioner West has moved to adopt the PGA's recommended congressional projects as directed. It's been moved by Commissioner Schrader. And any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, would you please call the poll for us?
Commissioner Fireside.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And Nancy, what's up next? And thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Tonya was going to be staying here, and the next is proposed outreach activities to support the board. Tonya?
Thank you. So this is my last request for the morning. Every year around this time, we come to the BCC to gain your preference on outreach activities to support your activities and create more visibility. So as the county's public information arm, we work really closely with the board to plan and implement communication strategies that help amplify the board's collective voice. And we're really proud of a new built in-house production studio, which provides us with a new suite of services, and I wanted to just tell you what they are. So these are available to you. We can do studio interviews where we can take any topic of interest where BCC has taken action and policy priorities. We also can do post-business meeting interviews, so it can be a quick informal interview with a commissioner who voted in the majority to, again, share more details and more information with the general public. We could also do video quotes for press releases that include just a few sound bites for B-roll that we then link to a press release that targets broadcast and print media. So these are all things that we now have at our fingertips and we can do very effectively and efficiently. And these will complement other production services that we currently offer for you to consider. These are virtual town halls. We talked about those a little bit earlier. And so they are online interactive meetings with the public on topics that you select. We also have done virtual listening sessions. They differ from town halls in that these are also online meetings with the public, but where the BCC listens to feedback or concerns from the public on a selected topic or issue. We can also do press conferences here in the hearing room. We've done a few of those in the last year where we quickly organize a press conference immediately after a business meeting with available commissioners. We tend to kind of know which topics may bring the media here, so it'd be great to be ready for those in the situation that they occur. And then we also do a summer video series where we work with each commissioner individually on location during the summer months, where you speak about an issue of your choice and you choose the topic and the location, and we bring the production. So those are the outreach activities that we'd like you to consider, and let us know if there's any in particular that you're interested in or others that you may want to hold off on for this year.
Great. Commissioner Schrader.
So does that mean I can resurrect cooking with the commissioner? Just out of curiosity.
Well,
We'll talk about it, okay?
talk
I'll
about
see,
it.
we'll see. PGA used to do that for me, and they told me, but they have a kitchen set up down at the
Yes.
folks there, and it was very successful. They keep telling me it was one of the more successful things they've ever done, so, and I've got plenty of things to
to cook.
And also, what I usually do in the summer is visit all the farmers markets.
Yes.
And so what we do is, what we've done before is a video of the farmers markets using the fresh produce and all those other kinds of good things. So we'll talk about that. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I've seen this in other counties across the nation, that a lot of times commissioners have, their email list that they send out. We oftentimes, we do it as a group, but also I've had some really very, very good friends in Florida who get us on their, commissioners who get us on their email list. And for example, when Florida was going through the hurricanes, we were getting updates but every so often from a commissioner, DeKalb County, Georgia, for example, would send updates from a particular individual. And I always thought it would be, I don't know how doable that is. I know I've always liked to be able to have maybe I'd like to have a newsletter like that from me that I can also share with colleagues across the United States. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So, and I don't know what it would be to each of us have an individual one to do that kind of thing, but 3 of us are going to NACO, and it helps build relationships. It helps keep people up with that. So that was just something I was going to throw out. So anyway.
I mean, that's a potential collaboration partnership between PGA and county admin. We would
Yeah.
expect that the policy analyst would have a role to play in that as well.
Just let them, they're really very informative, letting us know what's going on in other areas of the country. And I've seen it with individual commissioners having it. If we needed to do one as a group, I wouldn't mind that either. But quite frankly, I always find it informative, so.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner.
All right.
Commissioner West?
I see value in that. I don't think we should all 5 have our own news. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
And that's a lot to say.
But something we can
that is
send
something
out,
about the
yeah.
NACO relationship. Like
Yeah.
I've learned so much from different states and some different jurisdictions that have some, like ONC stuff. Like I really got tied into that as being a commissioner, learning about that policy and working with WIR.
Yep.
And then there's recovery stuff in H3S, and then we work with Phyllis all the way in Virginia in Loudoun County.
Right.
Right, and so, but
Exactly.
like, maybe she probably cares about what's happening in Clackamas too. We care what's happening in Loudoun, and she shares that. So I think there's a lot of like a way to kind of continue those
So that's
relationships.
for a targeted audience, because we do already do a
Right,
monthly.
so maybe like
this
to
is very
other-
targeted to
maybe-
colleagues across the country is what I
Yeah.
think I'm
I'd like
hearing.
to see that. We
Yeah.
can get lists and cards and.
Yeah, how do other commissioners, do they go through NACO to facilitate that?
No, I think they do it as a part of their, particularly Florida, is some of the, like Miami-Dade is a huge county, and they have the wherewithal to do that, for example. But when one of my friends, when they were going through that terrible hurricane, we got updates from them. And we also got updates, like, for example, from people from North Carolina who were commissioners when they were going through the hurricane piece there, too. And so I think it's part of what they do, but again, my question would be, if they're larger counties, they may have the wherewithal to do that.
And that's what I was going to recommend, is
Yeah.
I'm happy to explore what that would look like, and then circle back and say what that would mean, and then you can decide if
Sure.
that's something that we have the resources to do.
Do that, okay,
like that.
yeah.
I think that what I'd like to just kind of add is when we're at NACO, it might be a good opportunity to kind of reach out to other counties so that when
Yep.
we meet colleagues there to kind of see what they're doing. One of the things I guess I'd like to kind of see is really a strategic communication plan with kind of goals and measurable outcomes of how we're going to increase followers, or strategically how can we kind of improve our communication across the county. And I think it's so diverse. Our county's large, it's a lot of land. We have different needs, urban and rural. And so I think that I'd really kind of like to see, hey, here's what we're shooting for, and this is our goal to accomplish it. The other thing I think would be really important is I can tell you the time that I spent with my colleagues is everybody's running 10 different directions, right? And they're all doing important work. And I think part of which is helping the public understand what we're doing and seeing. And whether it's, a quick photo of somebody at an event, hey, we want to let you know we're out here addressing this concern in this community. I don't know exactly how we might facilitate that, because I know there's only so many public and governmental relations folks, but that might be something we could talk more about. And lastly, I think it's kind of one of the things I've always hoped is that we could find ways to promote both small, medium, and large businesses. Our goal is to really have businesses move to our county. There's a lot of great big companies throughout our county, and more moving here. So I think the more we kind of promote some of those both high-tech and companies will hopefully nudge others to come join us here in the county. And then lastly, I think that I would also kind of encourage you to maybe reach out to some of the directors and other elected officials. I know they pay a big allocated cost. I was one of those guys. And really trying to see how we could also promote what they see as some priorities. And I think that would be great. But I really applaud these two. I think they have some great ideas of whether it's a newsletter and we kind of get the message out in a number of ways. But Commissioner Savas, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone got a chance to speak. More of a humbled approach here. I think that it's really important that we, especially coming out of COVID and all the breakdowns in some of our committees as a result of COVID, people are starting to get more involved. There's a lot of virtual meetings that really don't have that same value as in-person meetings. And so I see a lot of organizations that are perhaps struggling, but at the same token, I think more important is that we actually do a lot more listening and get out in the community to do a lot more listening than do, again, to this, what we've experienced here in the last 5 years. It's been, I think, still significant. All input is perhaps maybe great from different groups, but I think more external than internal. I mean, typically, as complex as it may be, sometimes when it's internal, like let's just say departments, what they're doing, I was hoping that from that standpoint, addressing that alone, that we would have more work session environments where they're really not public facing, other than being a public meeting, of course, right, like we're doing right now, but actually have discussions and figure out how a department's doing and kind of get back to the metrics of what our MFR was all about, right? how are we doing? You know, making sure we got measurable outcomes and so forth. So I think that is something that I would like to go back to. It's really the brass tacks of what we do. It's one thing to broadcast, you know, or promote ourselves, but I think not having the metrics and the outcomes, both from our MFR, but also what we're doing, you know, having that kind of gel together. Maybe, I guess what I'm really proposing maybe is we kind of do a lot more listening on the front end, and when we get some of these things in place, we do a lot more output, public facing. Town halls is a definitely, I think, a way of doing, whether they're live or virtual, is a great way of getting some of that input. But I think that what I'm kind of concerned about is that we're really not hearing all the voices. We're maybe hearing some of the people that actively know how to advocate and how to reach us, but we're not hearing the people that are probably less engaged or less knowledgeable that, hey, or organized, if you will, to make their dent in our approach. You know, it's not no secret that there's, you know, not necessarily today, but on Thursdays, I mean, that's not really a gauge how many people show up at our meetings. Usually the only way we fill the room is if there's a controversy, which is not the right medicine. It's not the right approach per se, but it's also not a gauge either. And again, I would like to really put a lot of focus on listening. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I think you kind of got a consensus of where everybody's at. Did you have any questions before we wrap this portion up?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to, Chair Roberts, to speak to your points around a strategic communication plan and working collaboratively with the departments. I want to, first of all, say that I absolutely agree. One of the things that I have on my list to do this first year as director is to do exactly that, is to build a strategic communication plan. I've talked with Gary about that, and that is something that I think is very important. It allows us to be proactive, which I think is another thing that we've struggled with at times. And then in terms of working collaboratively with departments, I think if you talk to any one of the departments, they will confirm that that's exactly what we do. And, you know, our goal is to tell the story, the county story. It's not our story, PGA story. It's our story, the county story. So that is what we do, and we look at always through that lens, and we're going to continue to do that.
Great. And, you know, you've kind of made me think of one last comment I want to make, but just before I wrap it up, is also if there's opportunities where we can recognize citizens in the community. I meet just amazing people all the time. I met this guy, he's almost 90. He has a small wood cutting business and donates his time in a number of ways to help support the community, and just really neat individuals out there that sometimes just our way of saying thank you is kind of keep that in mind.
We've actually been talking internally about whether we can come up with some kind of a citizen acknowledgement award or recognition. So we're thinking the same way. And to your point about business spotlights, Laura Edmonds and I have met already and talked about that. She's going to be coming to you with an outreach plan, and so I think you'll hear more about that, but we definitely are excited to partner on that as well.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
All right, Nancy, what's up next?
All right, next we have the board business meeting agenda review for February 13th, 2025. We will have a Housing Authority, a public hearing, which will be on the Housing Authority fiscal year 2025 annual plan. Then we'll have public communication and then the consent agenda. And if there's no comments or concerns, that'll be our agenda. Are we good?
No, hearing
All right,
none.
thank you. And do you want to go ahead with what's next?
Yeah, so what's
Okay,
next?
so-
Is it the advisory boards?
It is.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, next is the advisory boards of commissioners and appointments. And clerk, would you please read the advisory boards?
Thank you. Esteemed Commissioners, the Committee for Community Involvement, staffed by Public and Government Affairs, has one person for reappointment. They recommend that Brent Perrys be reappointed for a second term as vice chair of the committee. Members may request reappointment for a second four-year term, serving up to a total of 2 consecutive four-year terms. Again, the recommendation is Mr. Brent Perrys for a second term ending 2029. The Board of Commissioners could select other candidates or require further recruitment. Mr. Chair.
May I have a motion?
Chair, I move to appoint Brent Perrys to the Committee for Citizen Involvement, and I have a follow-up comment after the vote about CCI, this committee.
Great.
Okay, I'll second that.
All right, discussion, Paul?
I just want to kind of share with the board, I know Martha knows this because she's been around a long time, but CCI used to be that committee, or it still is, frankly, but not really to the board's attention like it once was. They would, just building on the last conversation, they would sometimes make recommendations on who that Citizen of the Year may be or something like that. They also really are about how we get more engaged with the community, as opposed to being a committee about something or some particular purpose. They were really more about citizen involvement. It'd be nice to really hear what they think we ought to be doing, and if they've done any work in that area. And sometimes we've actually even charged them with, hey, could you look at this particular item or issue and give us your take or report back on that. So I think it might be a good idea to maybe sit down with them sometime and just talk about things and what they kind of see as we're trying to rebuild, again, our base, my earlier comments, our base of citizens that were heavily involved, which has shrunk post-COVID. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any comments?
It's a great committee, and I think we should utilize them. Yeah, that's how I got started, actually.
That's a
was on
tool in
that
our
committee.
tool belt that we really don't know about.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Clerk, would you please call a poll for us?
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Fireside.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And Nancy, what is next?
So next, we have the Metro President's Work Group on supportive housing discussion. And Commissioner West would like to lead this discussion.
Yes, as you guys know, let's see, President Lynn Peterson, Metro President Lynn Peterson is putting together a President's Task Force or group to address and have further conversations in the region around the supportive housing services tax. For the public that is watching, that is the income tax for what are considered high income earners that was passed by voters, 4 years ago, around that time frame. We've had some struggles with getting services up and running and getting the programming that we need going, and there are some potential changes with that tax that are being debated and policy changes around the corner. President Peterson asked me to co-chair this task force. It's an honor to do so, to try to bring some of the local electeds and thought leaders together to begin to get ahead of this and to make some positive changes. I think our success as a county is one of the reasons why we were asked to co-chair. So it's an honor to do that. But every county will have 2 representatives. I will be one for Clackamas because I accepted the role as co-chair, and we need another one. Now I would like to make an actual recommendation on who that, and I hope I talked to y'all enough about this before I make this statement, but here we go. I'd like to serve with Chair Roberts. I don't know if you're willing to do that, Chair. I'm throwing you out there right out the gate. I also think Commissioner Savas would be a wealth of knowledge because he understands all of the history around this and the details, and is quite complicated when we get into this policy topic. But I think the other chairs are going to be there. I think it's a completely appropriate when a task force this large and this high profile to make sure that we do have our chair involved. Chair, I know you're very, very busy and you're learning a lot as you step into this role as a chair, but I think that we have been in lockstep in many ways and very unified in our approach, and you have a fantastic track record that fits our model when you were sheriff, and so you bring your own unique perspective with law enforcement and other unique perspectives that only you bring on this board. So I would hope that this board would join me in supporting Chair Roberts to be that other commissioner in this new task force. That's all I have, but maybe we should talk about it, Chair, but it's up to you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll be willing to make a motion. So moved. The Chair Roberts.
Do you want discussion?
want to do it?
Yeah.
It's like I've raised my hand.
No, all I want to do is just make sure the chair is willing to do that.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah,
Paul.
so I'll second the motion.
All right.
All right.
And Paul.
Commissioner Schrader has moved that I, Craig Roberts, take part as this work group. Commissioner Savis has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Fireside.
Aye.
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Looks like aye. 5-0. Thank you. And Nancy, what's next?
Yes, next we have Commissioner Communications, so I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Right, thank you. So I'll start with my colleague to the right, if you don't mind. Commissioner Schrader.
Well, I just attended yesterday the Association of Oregon Counties Legislative Committee. I had to attend virtually, and they are poised and ready to go with an agenda for what's happening in Salem, and they oftentimes do a fantastic job looking out for the opportunities of all of our counties down there. And really, that's about all I have right now. I am going to be attending the National Association of Counties Community Economic and Workforce Development Committee this coming Wednesday. I chaired that committee for 2 years, and I am still a member, and it does everything with anything to do with economic development, and also we attempt to lobby our folks up there, particularly for HUD dollars, and also for the Department of Commerce. We oftentimes go there and we are passing resolutions to make sure that those significant two entities continue to get the funding they need. So we'll be talking about that. And finally, I'm going to be having coffee with Bridget and Brooke, who are Clackamas Workforce Partnership. I'm going to have an update about what we've been doing there in workforce after seeing them, and I'll have more about that next week. And I see Randy's in the office, and I did give you a thumbs down for retiring. I said, you can't leave us here, Randy. You're going to be you're having a retirement party on Saturday, right? Or no, Friday. Well, I'm going to try and be there, and I hope this isn't the last that we're going to see you, that you'll be moving on to other things, but, okay, there's a thumbs up. Love that. Okay. And we knew each other way back when you were a city manager in Estacada, so that goes back a long time. And we both have gray hair now. Anyway, thanks. It's nice to see you here today, Randy. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Savis?
Yeah, I know we're a little bit behind on our time, and I want to make sure we get enough time for the next agenda item, which is the Recovery Center, but I do have a kind of a hard stop at noon, so I will keep it really short and just say that maybe some of you are aware that the announcement was that the PERS contribution has gone up to 26%, and I would like ideally to get our financial staff and everyone to take another look at our forecast and calculate that in. I'm very concerned. And I guess that applies for maybe all of the different budget departments, but, I think with relates to the crisis we have a little bit within CPRD as well as our general fund, I'd like to get those numbers to have a better idea, especially as we contemplate whether it's negotiations or whether it is other challenges ahead. Forecasts are forecasts, but things come along and they change the dynamics significantly, and I'm worried about this one. That's all I have, Chair. I yield back.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner West?
I'm going to bring up, I went to kind of an emergency meeting on Friday from Clackamas Fire. Media was there, some other local electeds. I don't know if there were any other commissioners that attended the meeting. I'm not sure.
I think it was the update. I think I was there
Yeah.
virtually. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was the update regarding the Blue Heron fire. That was a 3-alarm fire that recently happened. And Chair Roberts, as I bring this up, I'd be very curious about your thoughts after I bring this up with your background in public safety. After a lot of talk with the fire department, Clackamas Fire, it worries me to say that I believe that we are not doing a good risk assessment and mitigating risk and preventing dangerous fires like this from happening. I believe we're now beginning to see a pattern. And I think that's incredibly concerning, especially in light of what we saw in Malibu. And what we saw in 2020, and when you went through this, many of this board and Chair Roberts in a different capacity, you guided the county through that catastrophic event. And I think that we've had a lot of what's called in my field of nursing, we call them near misses. When you almost give somebody the wrong medication, when you almost don't handle something right within medicine, and you're like, oh, we could have gone just a little bit the other direction, we could have had a sentinel or catastrophic event. And I think we have a number of those when it comes to derelict buildings that continue to sit empty, attract in the homeless to live in them, and through fire setting within those buildings, they catch fire. Now, it is still under investigation, but in 2020, we had a homeless person set fire to one of the Blue Heron buildings. That building caught ablaze, and 12 firefighters were seconds from losing their lives as the building caved in around them, and that happened in 2020. Then we still see those buildings that are derelict and a nuisance at the Blue Heron still standing. And then we just have the 3-alarm fire that almost took out the train tracks, and they were about to evacuate homes because it had been a dry January. It's been cold, but it's been dry, and we had enough brush there. They were afraid of a vegetation fire sweeping up and actually having to evacuate people in Oregon City. We know we almost catastrophically were this close to losing 12 firefighters, but the buildings are still up and standing. Then we had a situation with Miles Fiberglass, I think it was last year. Yeah, last year. Clackamas Fire did 9 responses to that structure after it had been vacated by the previous owner. And they pushed Clackamas County, we were the property owner, to act, and they sent certified letters for an unsafe structure per the Oregon Fire Code. The building burnt down 24 hours later, and multiple sets were noted on the helmet camera that it was human caused. So they were able to verify that a transient person caused that fire at Miles Fiberglass. We then had toxic air and had a vulnerable population housed across the street in the Fuller apartments. And many of those people had also comorbidities or medical issues that caused them to have to be housed in Fuller to get the subsidized housing. And there was a lot of vulnerable people that lived there. And we were really concerned about air quality and almost had to evacuate and do some and take those measures. Then we have the 3-alarm fire in another derelict building at Blue Heron that was a known issue since 2020 that I've talked about. And policing is nearly impossible because at least at Blue Heron, they have one hydrant, the water is turned off. It's like a dangerous maze in there. Even if you have security on site, which they've had, they can't really know who's hiding where. And we've all seen it. Like you can just go down there and see it's that type of property. And it's dangerous, and so there's been but I want to say this, the Grand Ron who owns the property have been fantastic, and they've been trying to get ahead of this. Clackamas Fire has been amazing in this effort, but there has been an issue, it's been reported to me, that DEQ has been very difficult to get permitting to take down the derelict buildings that continue to persist there and be a nuisance. When we can prevent these fires from happening, if we could do the demolition necessary to not allow these buildings to stand for so long. And so I think that that's a concern at a local level. And I don't know if this board should look into it further about our desire to look at these different risks and try to mitigate and prevent them. Maybe it's a joint letter to DEQ and the governor, say we need your help to get the permitting done through the state to take these risks offline so that they don't happen in our community. Maybe it's a joint letter with Oregon City and Clackamas Fire, that's respectful, but like, hey, this is a concern we're seeing. And Clackamas Fire, I think that special district is really struggling. They're saying now after the 3rd or 4th fire, now that maybe that they'll get a little bit of fast track in DEQ. But I think there's some frustration there with working through the bureaucracy. And I just think in light of the fires in 2020, the Malibu fires, and some of the issues we have here on the West Coast with wildfires, even in Oregon, California, and Washington, that we need to be super proactive, that we recognize this, and we should be getting downstream from any potential large fire. I think this is a severe public safety concern, and I think that we should maybe use our local voice to advocate to get those risk factors mitigated. I'd love your thoughts, Chair, because this is in your wheelhouse, but that's something I wanted to bring to the attention of the board.
Great. I think that, just to kind of respond to Commissioner West, I think first and foremost, I think he brings forward a valid point. And I think that Gary's not here, he might not appreciate me asking staff to do more with less, but part of which is maybe, and I'm just throwing this out for discussion, is perhaps we have disaster management or really talk with the city of Oregon City, talk with Clack Fire, talk with Grand Ron. Maybe they can even kind of pull together and convene a meeting to kind of say, hey, we're all kind of concerned about this. Is there a way to kind of move the dial forward? Because it is obviously concerning. Maybe once they've kind of come up with some recommendations, maybe it is a step to contact DEQ to help support it. But I do think you bring a concern that just from the television footage I saw, it does look very difficult to fight that thing.
Yeah.
Particularly being right along the tracks, and it would be great to have it just demolished. And so I would turn to Bush and ask you if you, Deputy Administrator, if you have any thoughts, what would you think about that?
So, yeah, I think that, we can have, disaster management, I'll say they work very closely with Clackamas Fire in particular. And I think from what I'm understanding from Commissioner West, that, some of this is related to some of the ordinances and things that Oregon City does and how they do that. I think it's really worth a conversation, and happy to talk to disaster management and try to pull a group together, at least to have a conversation regarding the issue.
And so the state, I mean, the Clackamas Fire, when they spoke to me, they said it has been very difficult and very difficult to get the permits from DEQ in the state level. They've even asked the governor's office to weigh in. At the emergency meeting on Friday, it was my understanding that DEQ was going to be there to try to help field questions from the media and the community, but they ended up not showing last minute. And so I think that this is also a state issue, and kind of us understanding as a local group that has to work together to mitigate these public safety risks, where do we need to be to get together on this? Maybe there are some local Oregon City ordinances. I think it goes all the way to the state level. When the Malibu fires we're all watching those things that happen and how tragic that was. I mean, my next phone call was to Gary's like, please tell me we are ready again, right? This is like our core function as a local government. And so I want to see us, at least the community, know that we're doing our job and getting ahead of and being preventative, and let's be preventative. And so maybe it is a convening, maybe it's a joint letter, maybe it's helping Clackamas Fire not do this alone when they're trying to deal with a big bureaucracy in the state. I don't know.
Yeah, and it may be Oregon City's waiting on state as well.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Commissioner Schrader had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a suggestion here. Pam Treese, who's from Washington County, is on the Regional Solutions Board. And what they usually do is bring together all the agencies when there's an issue. I know that they were involved originally with Blue Heron when it first transpired, and they have a new person now, Kathy, I want to say Heggie, is the new Regional Solutions person for this area. And a lot of times, they're the ones that can actually pull together that kind of group of people from the agencies across the state. So I would like to see if maybe we could involve them
Okay.
in this. Take a look at
good.
it and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good suggestion. Thank you. Commissioner West, do you have anything else you want to add?
Are we giving direction today, or I don't know?
I understand it as really kind of giving the direction. I mean,
Okay.
I think
Cool.
just general direction
Do you have what you
versus
need?
having a vote
I
on
think
it.
I have, if I don't have what I need, I'll follow up.
Perfect, okay, yeah,
Is that all right?
thank you. Thank you for letting me share that concern.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. And Commissioner, I'm sorry, Paul, did I miss you?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Commissioner Fireside.
And for the sake of time, I'll hold my comments until Thursday. Thank you.
Okay. And just a really quick comment was presented to the Clackamas Caucus, on really talking a lot about the Recovery Center and transportation issues, and answered a lot of questions, and very excited about moving forward on that, and we're going to hear more about that this afternoon. So as I wanted to reach out to my colleagues, if we can continue to pound on and go through the policy stuff, or did you want to take a break?
For time's sake, what do you guys think?